Hopefully you're in the right room, so you're here to hear from Durgesh Kalya. Probably many of you know him already from his experience at IOTSF as well as ICS for ICS. He's going to do his introduction for sure. I can't do justice for it because he does a lot of things, but he's going to talk about incident management for OT systems. Durgesh, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Vivek. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a good day today. This is my first time here in OT Security Conference, or OT SecCon. Very excited to be here. Today I'm going to talk about incident management. It's almost like a follow-up from the keynote panel from Mark. Mark is right here in our room today, so I'm going to try do some justice to what he said and try to incorporate some of that into my presentation as well. I've been a long-term OT, IT, technician. I've worked in various different roles, and I've spent about 18 years in the industry, chemical industry mostly, and so my background has some IT in it. That's how I kind of got started as my first job at Hewlett-Packard. But my academic background is in instrumentation technology. So when I came to United States, one of the big hot jobs was instrument tech. So I took it on, and I started, learning some of those skill sets that you can get, going through in the field. So I've also been involved with the ISA, International Society of Automation. I'm the chair of the Safety and Cybersecurity Technical Communities. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay, just want to make sure. So I also helped shape the ICS for ICS framework, which is Incident Command System for Industrial Control System. It's a framework that was developed by Global Cyber Alliance, which is part of ISA, but it was really put in motion in the CS4CA not CS4CA, S4 conference back in 2021 by Megan Sanford. So I am going to talk a little bit about that, but today's presentation is mostly going to revolve around strategies that you need to implement in your organization to do some of the incident management during incidents. Now, if you're familiar with the incident management framework, right, there are some structured approach that you can take. I always like to think that everybody is in some sort of maturity in their organization. So, whether you are in the starting stage, where you're starting out to build your incident management, or you may be at a very developing or advanced stage. So you always think about a maturity level in anything we do as OT security professionals. I think that's a very good mindset to have. So most of the facility is like 15, 12, 10, 20, depends on how long they have existed, 50, 60 years old. They have a good facility incident response and facility incident management. And that's because it was dictated by the safety for the organization, for the chemical manufacturing, that's what I'm part of, for any other critical infrastructure that you are part of. It has been dictated, and they have got it to where it's pretty manageable. But when you come to OT, most of the time, our incident responses do not touch that because we don't know what it's going to do if you stop it or if you try to restart it, right? That's where most of the organizations are, or at least where last 3 years ago, there have been some companies that have invested time and energy into putting systems together that will give you alerts, have put some process in place to capture an incident in the OT systems, right? And some companies have IT folks managing some of the OT systems as well, and so they have some sort of maturity because IT is also a sort of in a very mature area compared to OT. So I want to start off with a story, and everybody has a OT incident, correct? I hope not, that we're part of. If you are, great, because I know that's where you learn. Mark mentioned, either you are in the OT security space by accident or by incident. And I've been, by accident as well as by incident. So I want to share this small story that I have. This happened in 2012 range, right? So 2012, 2013. So think about, I don't know if it was iPhone 4 or iPhone 5 came out. People were still getting used to the smart technologies and all that. But we were getting a ton of email spam. That was a big problem back then. Today, that problem still exists, but it's not as big as it was. Of course, phishing attack is still on the rise, but this is about 2012. I was working for a small, medium-sized chemical manufacturing. They had about 120 employees, about 30 contractors, maybe about 40 operators, 3-4 shifts, 10, 12 operators per shift, 24/7 operation. And it was a Wednesday, like middle of the week. You're thinking, okay, 2 more days, and then I can go home. It's going to be a weekend. And then around 9 o'clock in the morning, my HR manager comes running in, or rather, she was walking with a sheet of paper. It was a printout of a mailer demon email, and it was like, she's giving it to me, and she's like, hey, we are not able to send emails out. I sent about 30 plus emails, and I got about 15, 20 rejections. I just want to make sure you are aware of it. And so she had got me a printout. So I told her, just forward me all the emails. And so I was looking through all of the emails. And there were some indications, there were some clues, right? So I'm like playing detective right now. And I found that we are being blacklisted by 30 plus different spam reputation engines. And you could search those, and I'm sure you can do it today too, through various websites. You can go to like MX Toolbox is one of them that I used to use, where you can go and see if you're blacklisted or not. So getting blacklisted, right? So my first thing is, okay, my Exchange server is misconfigured, or something else is going on. And as I was attending to this problem, one of the process engineers, Tim walks in, and he was like, my computer is really slow. I just opened the reports for today, and his reports are basically Excel, which have tons of add-ins that are pulling data from Historian, and it's trying to populate it. And he's like, my computer is really slow. So I said, Tim, that's happened last week. Go and reboot it, close all the applications, and you're going to be fine. And Tim says, I did all that already. I know you were going to tell me that. So I did it already, and I still have the problem. I said, Tim, I will come to you in a minute. I just want to make sure I take care of this. And then within about 5 minutes, I get a call on my desk phone from the control room. And it's a desperate operator, saying, hey, my trends on my screen are glitchy. And I've heard this before. They can flatline if they have network issues with the Historian, right? So everybody's familiar with some of the pies and some of the exaquantums of there that provides you with some kind of data, historic data. But then operations uses it for real-time operation, right? So we have all that, we have seen all that, and they were relying on this trend, which is glitchy. Well, 3 things, these are the indicators for me, right? But I was new to this game. Oh, sorry, that was too fast. Yep, so around 11 o'clock in the morning, I decide, because I'm the network engineer, I'm also the help desk at that company. And I'm not the manager. I have a supervisor who manages me. So I call him into the room, and I said, we have to do something. There's something going on. I can't tell you what it is. I don't have visibility. I can access my firewall, and my firewall has high CPU usage. It's acting crazy. We need to pull something. We need to turn off something. And we made an executive decision to pull the internet connectivity, right? And what it did was, we have no internet connection. We had just upgraded our phone system to VoIP. And so internal phones worked, but no outgoing, or we can't receive any calls, right? And then email is obviously down. These were the 3 main things that our business was using at that time that relied on the internet. Today, we have a lot more things. We have cloud, we have all the other services. But I basically killed the whole business by pulling out that Ethernet cable. And that was not it, right? Then I got people coming down to my office. asking me what's happening. I haven't been able to notify everybody, and everybody's stuck. They can't do their jobs, especially in the admin building, especially in the engineering building. Control room, fortunately, is still functioning with glitchy trends. 3 days later, we find that we had to clean up about 2 server class machines. One of them had to be completely wiped out. We had to call our ICS vendor to help us out because it was a OT system. The other servers were IT systems. I was managing those. I was able to get those back up. We had some workstations. This was a Cutwhale botnet. If you're not familiar with it, this, back in the 2012 era, spamming and sending phishing emails, or not phishing emails, but sending advertisements, spam was a big deal. And so the Cutwhale would download into any of your systems, infect it, install it, and then it would also infect other systems. So basically, all it did was connect to some central server and send out thousands of emails. And that's what got us down. All right, so that was fortunate in a way because it didn't do anything else. It was just a botnet that we were able to catch. We had to use multiple antivirus and anti-malware program to detect it and erase it. So these were some of the impacts. I had already mentioned we had email issues, slow internet, operational, also, operations got affected. Overall, it was not a good thing. So the following week, I'm called in to explain all this. I've also been asked to provide a report. And so my report had, this is kind of the highlight of the report. I don't have my whole report here. In fact, I don't even have the report, but I still remember that one of the big things was we didn't have adequate network segmentation. And even though this is about incident management, it's also important that incident management involves a lot of those same OT security strategies, and some of the basics are, can you tell me today that all your devices are properly segmented and properly zoned? Can anybody here say with 100% confidence? And if you can, that's great. If you cannot, then there's some work to be done. And that's where I'm trying to bring this conversation to, is that there's always work to be done, but there are some basics that you have to get done. No incident response preparedness, right? We didn't have any incident response preparedness. We were just winging it. Pulling the cable, in today's day and age, it is not considered the first choice, right? We don't pull cable. Now, we would in some ways if it is part of your IRP. If your IRP says, incident response plan says that pulling the cable is part of the IRP strategy, then yes. But doing it without knowing what's going to happen is not definitely a strategy. And then we didn't have reliable endpoint security, which, every device today should have some sort of endpoint security, whether it's a CrowdStrike-like EDR application or agent, or it could be something that is doing antivirus, something that can notify you. Make sure you're getting those logs. Make sure you're getting those emails. So that's a must. And even today, I find it hard that these endpoints sometimes are not updated on a regular basis. So there's a lot of work to be done. While we know there are some shiny technologies out there, vendors trying to sell you some high-end technologies, we still have some work to do here on the OT side. So no comprehensive plan, no key personnel identified. That's another thing. When we did the restores and clean wipe the systems and reload them, we were doing it. I was basically, Tim actually helped me, a process engineer. He came and he was helping me load some of the operating systems because you had to click next, next, next. So he was helping me with that. So we have to identify key personnel. Who's going to do this when the shift hits the fan, right? When things go crazy, you have to have people who knows what to do and are not that. There was a picture in the second slide where there was a deer staring at the headlight. That's an effect, and that's a true effect, and it happens with humans too. So you need to have those key personnel identified. So what we did in the first 3 months following, and then we did the second phase, which was the next 6 months, and obviously we had some 3-year plans, 5-year plans, but this was the immediate thing. So we got our OT and IT network segmented. Very simple, right? You have to have segmentation between your OT systems. Define OT for your organization. A vendor can define OT in many different ways. A client can define OT in what is it for your organization? What systems are considered OT? In some organizations, some OT systems are managed by IT, and that's okay. Then you call those IT systems. Then you apply the same type of priorities and in importance as what IT would do. But if it falls under your group, then you would call it OT. So segmenting, making sure you apply those standards that are out there. If your organization has a standard, make sure you're able to apply them. If you're not able to apply them, change the standards to where you are able to apply them and get that adequate security. We also created a first ever incident response plan that's comprehensive for the organization. It was 1 page of document. Literally, there was nothing else but 1 page. That's how it started. And it included some of the IT components, also some of the OT components. We didn't call it OT back then, but it included DCS, PLC components into it, which included some of the phone numbers of our vendors to call. What it also included is a pre-discussion with our vendors that we will call them if we have a problem. And are you okay with that? Do we need to create a new agreement so we can pay you some kind of retainer fee and then have you on this program? So in case something went bad, we can call you the 4-hour notice and you can come down and help us do some of the recovery work. And then we implemented a business-wise EDR emergency or endpoint detection and response system. And it could be multiple system, it could be one system, it doesn't matter. A system that can help you notify if something malicious is going on in your environment, something that is unwanted, some protocols that are being used that you're not supposed to see on a OT system. You're seeing some Modbus communication coming from IT. Those are the things. So your EDR systems can actually help you recognize that. And I'm using EDR in a very general way. It could be a sensor that's sitting in the OT environment. It could be a network level controller, a network access control that is managing your different traffics going to different zones. But make sure you have those alerts set up so that you can get those alerts and make sure you identify the key personnel to get those alerts so then you can take actions on them. And of course, in the next 6 months, we put IT standards and procedures, the governance part of it. We also put an IT/OT lifecycle management, because what we found out that when we were trying to implement that EDR solution, the systems were so outdated that we couldn't install some of the applications that we were trying to install. So we had to first bring those Windows XP boxes to Windows 8 or Windows 7, I think back then, to be able to install some of that applications. And so make sure you have a IT/OT lifecycle plan or lifecycle management plan. It used to be 7 years, 10 years, now it's gone to 5 years. Microsoft sometimes dictates it, sometimes vendors dictate it. Regardless, you have to do it. So why don't you put a plan together and make sure you have that in place. All right, and then IT/OT managed services. Again, OT managed services are not very popular, but IT managed services, there are a ton of them, but there are companies today that provide you with OT managed services. There are plenty of them sitting outside in the form of vendors. You can always talk to them and ask them about that. They may not tell you that they do that, but then most companies have a managed service solution. So ask them what can they do during incident management. Make sure you have them in your incident response plan. All right, did put some phishing training. That was kind of new back then. It was my favorite thing to do, send emails to employees and see who clicks it. And something was brought up in today's keynote about incentivizing. And so we did something similar. We gave away gift cards. It was like $25 gift card. And it was pretty neat because people would, if they clicked on it, they wouldn't get the gift card. If they report it, they would get the gift card. Okay, so OT and IT and safety and the whole plant security. This is what you're dealing with when you're talking about a manufacturing facility or a facility that produces chemicals, that produces some sort of tangible goods, right? So manufacturing facility. I stole this from that movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. You may be familiar. It's a Chinese drama, but this is how IT/OT incidents look like. They happen all the time, everywhere when it's happening, right? It's not in just one area where you can say, oh yeah, let's just go there and try to fix it. So typically, incidents happen in, when you're, this is your normal operation. You may have an event. It could be anything from, there may be some unauthorized access, some alert that came in that somebody is not supposed to have access to certain resources. At first, oh yeah, it may be a very innocent mistake from an employee, fine. But if it happens 3 times, it happens 4 times, make sure you get alerted, because that may be a sign that something is going to happen. And then you have event 2 followed, still in the IT domain. And then there is, it somehow trickles into your OT network. And then you have an OT event. It could be that one of your historian got rebooted, or got logged off, or somebody closed a service or stopped a service from the Windows machine. So how do you know that it's happening? You have to have alerts and notifications, which I'll talk towards the end of the slide on how you can take all of those logs, events, alerts, and make sense of it, put it into a SIEM where you can get all of that information, intelligent information, so you can take action. So this is how typically a incident occurs in IT/OT. Now, it may not even have an IT component. It may start from the OT side. But then what we are really concerned about is it going into safety, really disrupting our operation, right? That's what IT and OT incident management is all about, is it really affecting our safety, because they are our end customers, internal customers, and we are supporting their operation, which is producing chemicals or whatever manufacturing we are doing. So I'm going to go through this really quickly, because this is not my focus today, but I'm going to tell you that there are some stats. Highlight is that 2023, 2024, 2025, which we are in now, the manufacturing sector is getting hit really bad, and attacks are getting doubled. We have heard all of this. There's stats all over the internet, but really these are some of the strategies that you have to have. Asset management, you need to know basic stuff. I'm not going to go through all of this. Network segmentation, we talked about that. Access control, but really most important is your OT incident management. Have you paid attention, focus, and put energy into developing your OT incident management? And I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can do that in a very simple form. And some companies may be already doing it. They're not really talking to each other in different groups, and how to bring that group together and then say, oh yeah, we do have a system in place. Let's test it, right? That's where you need to be. All right, so incident management principles, we're all familiar with this. If you're not, this is a very standard approach, ISA, IEC 62443. There are some SANS incident framework that also has very similar. So it all starts with preparation, where most of my talk is going to be today. And then detection and identification, I'll cover a little bit about that. Of course, there's containment and how to contain that. That goes to cyber response, cyber defense, and then eradication, recovery, trying to get back to your operation. When we saw that slide with events, getting back to that normal operation. And some of the key things that you have to have are communication and coordination. We're going to cover that. And then there's going to be post-incident reviews. Of course, if you put in a program, you want to improve it continuously. So you need to be able to continuously improve it. All right, so how are we doing on time? So I think we are doing good. Okay. So what is the strategy for OT incident management? Okay. Have a plan. Okay, before we go to have a plan. OT IRP is not a thing. Your facility has an incident response plan. OT is part of that. It's a component, right? Do you all agree with me? Because there's already something in place, and you are just a part of the system or the technology. So you are making sure, while doing all this, is that there are some OT components that are addressed in the incident response plan. Okay, that's what I'm talking about when I say OT incident response plan. It is not your own plan that you run without anybody else, right? There is Emergency Operations Center, there is IT, there could be information systems, software, other groups. There could be fire safety, there could be other groups. Safety is another group, process safety is another group. So incident response plan is part of that. So having a plan, right? We're going to talk about how to build this real quickly, but you also need to know who and how to respond. This is very important. Like when things hit the fan, you need to know who to call, who is going to come and help you. It's middle of the night. It usually happens when it's a weekend. It could happen on a Monday morning. It could happen, when everybody's just checking out, leaving the room, going back home, or stuck in traffic. It can happen anytime, right? So you need to be prepared of who you need to call, how are you going to call them, do you have a plan in place? And that's about cross-functional collaboration. I'm going to talk a little bit about that also. Have monitoring in place. So this is, I think, a lot of companies today are struggling. This is the challenge, trying to put in sensors. There are tons of companies that are telling you, hey, we have this OT sensor. Put it in your environment. It is not that easy, correct? I know firsthand that it is a very challenging task to scope it out, to even try to get equipment in and installed and actually working. It takes a while. And you do that as a proof of concept. You have to be very, very, you have to do a lot of work in advance to make sure that POC is successful. Otherwise, there's going to be a failure in the POC, in the process, proof of concept. So having monitoring can also mean some of the logs that are already being generated. Your industrial control systems, they're Windows machines. They have a lot of Windows logs that are going out, events logs that are going out. Being able to capture those using a syslog server. I'm talking very basic stuff that most companies still suffer on the OT side. IT has it handled, but OT, on the other hand, may not necessarily have their own syslog server where they can throw in a lot of these logs in for it to ingest, okay? So, and then make it effective. Now, how can you make it effective, right? How can you make your incident response plan effective? Is if you have an incident, a live incident, it is going to be effective because the incident happened to you and you need to now know how to respond to it. The other way around, which is more proactive, is to be able to do tabletop exercises, do functional exercises, or to have like a full-scale exercise, and I'll explain the difference a little later, but that's the way to actually make it more effective to your organization. CISA, DHS, there are Dragos, there are so many other companies out there that have resources. You can download them, but what you really need to do is take the time to customize it for your organization. And this is not one-person job, this is a team effort. And you need to identify those people who can actually sit together and plan this, right? And they may be already in your department, they may be in your groups, you just need to identify them. A lot of people will be interested in taking part in this tabletop exercises. So just to show of hands, how many of you have taken part in a tabletop exercises within the last year? That's a great number. I mean, I did this about 5 years ago, and there were not many hands, and it's really good to see that we have progressed in that, because this is very important. When you do tabletop exercises, it's almost like you are going through an incident mentally, right? And then you are identifying those security gaps. And ICS for ICS is a framework that you can go online and download today and run those tabletop exercises. It has everything scripted and everything ready for you. You can customize it, obviously, but it is something that you can start. So this crowd here, I think, is good. You already had a experience in that. Keep that going. Okay, I'm going to talk about how to mature that program of yours, right? All right, so IRP, we are going to see how we build that. Like any other plan, you need to know what you've got. You need to do risk management or risk assessment. So conducting a risk assessment will involve running firewall audits. If you have firewalls in your OT environment, switch audits, network audits, that would be one of your risk assessments. You would also bring in third party and then do risk assessments, interview all of your personnel, try to gather data. You will also run scans on your Windows machines offline and get the data about their vulnerabilities, their patch. That's all about risk assessment. So you need to know your risk strategy before you can implement a risk management plan. You need to also define incident categories and severity levels. What is incident categories? So unauthorized access is an incident category. DDoS is an incident category. You need to be able to categorize the incidents that can happen to your organization. And this is important because when you give it a name, you can then then you can form a plan on how to prevent it. You can put things together in terms of a plan to identify key personnel who will help you to eradicate it, to contain it. So you need to be able to categorize all of those incidents that can happen to your organization. Define severity levels, right? So every organization can have their own different definition of that, but usually severity level 5 is the lowest, 1 is the highest, right? So you can go in that way and say 1 is if you get affected, you're going to have a shutdown. Severity level 5 is, okay, you have unauthorized access, but it didn't really do anything because it was Joe from engineering who was trying to log into a server and he used the wrong password. So we're not going to really beat us to death with that, but with the level 5, you are. And all those needs to be defined within your SIEM so that you get those alerts and you're able to make those decisions on when an event has become an incident. Because unless you recognize there's an incident, you won't start your IRP. You won't kick in your IRP. So, and then understanding some key personnel in your organization. So there are two ways to go with this. One is the people who do the work, and then the people that make decisions. They are the ones who approve POs. They will tell you, yes, go and buy 10 laptops. You need to identify those people. You need to have those people in the incident response plan somewhere where you can access them during an incident, right? Then when you do your periodic drills and continuous improvements, you're going to develop playbooks. Your incident response plan will also have playbooks. Playbooks sounds like a lot of work, a ton of work, but you can start with 1, 2 playbooks for a scenario and keep collecting that. And by the time you're in 5 years of this incident response management, you would have at least 50 plus playbooks that you would have identified. Every one of these will be so useful when the actual incident occurs because you already know which way to go. You're not going to decide, you're not going to use your GPS. You know exactly which way to go if your GPS fails, right? All right, so cross-functional collaboration, right? So at Covestro and some of the organizations that I've worked, I have been fortunate that they had some level of this security walkthroughs. But I found that security walkthroughs are great when you have diverse people in it. When I say diverse people, I'm talking about process automation guys, IT guys. Your plant security is in there too. Take them on a walk to the plant. And this is scheduled, right? So this is happening every month. We actually do it twice a month. So you schedule it. If you have, let's say, 5 units, business units in your manufacturing plant, you have 5, right? So you can do 1 a month. That's 5 months. And the next 5 months, you can start over again. You can keep going. And so this is a really great opportunity to bring people in together. And I'll share a sample audit checklist that we use. It's very close to the Job Safety Analysis, JSA, very similar to that, but it has OT components in it. Checking for a loose Ethernet cable hanging in the rack in the cabinet. A rogue wireless router just sitting there on top of a cabinet. Things like that. You're looking out for signs on the door. Is the badge access working? Yeah, that's not my job. That's plant security. No, it is part of our job now because plant security is with us and we are doing this walkthrough together, right? Annual OT, IT/EOC, crisis management. Bring everybody together when you do your exercises. That tabletop exercise can be a Teams meeting, first one, and then you can get people in a room. We are all hybrid now, most people are, and so you can have a hybrid where majority of the group meets in a room and have Teams or other web conferencing system help you with that. You need to have regular facility cybersecurity meetings, and before you have meetings, you need to identify the people. And this is the group of people, these are the group of people that are the managers that have the authority to approve POs. I'm just giving you that as an example, but these are decision makers. They are the buck stops at them, right? So you can go to them and say, hey, Jeff, we need to get this PO going. He should be able to give you his credit card. I'm sorry, you probably shouldn't do that. But he should have that authority to say, you know what, go get it done, because I know we've gone through this before, but you need to bring them in. And what you can do is you can have these quarterly, once a month, again, meetings with all of these key personnel. Typical meetings usually have 5 to 6 members, usually have an OT person, specialist, DCS, PLC specialist in it, and they can keep changing, right? So today they may send a person from the DCS group, and tomorrow they may be somebody from safety group. It doesn't matter. As long as they're part of the group, as long as they're getting the emails, as long as they're meeting and discussing some of the key challenges they're facing, in terms of security. A good thing that has happened with this kind of thing is, this kind of meeting is that our plant security is now aware of cyber. And that is very important because we are a maritime regulated facility, MTSA regulated facility, which means the MTSA regulations that kicked in 2 years ago requires you to conduct cyber assessments. And who has to kind of manage that? Your facility security officer, who is really a plant security. He or she has no idea what cyber is. They're more concerned about gates and their fences and access control. And so bringing them into these discussions, they're getting familiar. So this is where you do cross-functional training as well. This is how you share knowledge. All right, so the security walkthroughs, these are some of the reporting. This is not really on the computer. We usually actually print it out. We are trying to go into a software-based where you can take a tablet with you and do checks. But typically, you're looking at access control, you're looking at OT network, you're looking at rack management, you're looking at how cabinets are locked. Sometimes cabinets have a lock and the key is sitting right in it. No, you need to be able to manage that. So that becomes the key management, where you put the keys in a box and somebody has access to it. And so that comes up through these security audits. So really helpful, because like I said, with MTSA, Coast Guard can come into your facility and actually walk through these systems and say, you said that you were really secure with your cabinets, and see, here's a key. What are you going to say, right? So you need to be able to manage that proactively. All right, so so this is some of the facility security group that I talked about. I'm just going to go through this real quick so we have some time for question Q&A. And this is a very famous Chinese philosopher who said, tell me I forget, teach me I may remember, and involve me I learn. And this is so true in everything we do in OT, right? So you can talk about this all day long. I can stand here and talk about it, but unless you are actually going in and doing these things, that's where the actual value is. And that's tabletop exercise is one of them. ICS for ICS, a little bit of an advertisement for ICS for ICS. It's a free framework, so we're not selling it. Nobody's selling it right now, at least. You can go download it, and you can get, when I say download it, those are PDF files, right? So it uses the incident command system, which is FEMA's incident command system, but we have modified that to incorporate the OT personnel in it, OT roles and responsibilities. We also identified, like for organizations that have 2 OT specialists, you need 20 other during an incident. How do you get access to that? For organizations that have 20 OT specialists, and I say specialists, they could be network engineer, anti-malware engineer, reverse engineer, whatever you want to call that. You can't have them full-time, so you need to be able to get contracts in place with companies that can provide these services. So it kind of nudges you as you're going through the exercise to be able to proactively get retainers on your incident response plans. So do check that out. A little bit about the maturity for tabletop. So I usually say tabletop is the baby, and then functional exercise kind of grows from there. Functional exercise is when you actually test your processes, you run that script and see if it actually disconnected the network because you wanted to. That could be one of your strategies, is to disconnect the network. Even though you're not physically pulling cables because nobody's at the site, you need to be able to securely run a script that is authorized, whitelisted, that will disconnect some networks, disable certain VLANs, whatever you're doing during the incident, because you want to contain that incident. So that would be tested in these functional exercises. And then, of course, you can go full scale. Plant security and emergency operations center are very familiar with this. They will call their neighboring plants, neighboring organizations to take part in it. It's a fun day activity. You know, there's lunch, there's crawfish, sometimes there's things. But then you are going to include OT components into that now with the help of, you know, whether you take the ICS for ICS framework or any other frameworks that are out there. But think about the future where you're going to mature these programs. And so the goal of table topics is to build awareness, functional exercises to test coordination, and then as you go, you get a little bit more advanced with it. You're actually going to simulate real-life attacks on the OT environment. I know people will be like, what? Why would I even do that? Why would I even start doing that? It's not safe. You know, that's the do not touch anything written on the whiteboard mentality. We need to get away from that. Because if you are not going to get away from that, the bad guys are going to start doing it, and then what, right? So you need to be proactive, being able to take that risk, coordinate with your unit, your plant, people that are in the leadership positions, tell them, hey, this is something we need to do. We need to test this out. I know it's going to mean 30 minutes of disruption. You might lose 30 minutes of trends on your historian, but we have buffering in place, so don't worry about that. It'll all catch back up, but we need to be able to do that. So being able to get those people into those meetings, really important, but also be able to test those during your functional exercises. And then you can then go into other things. You can do workshops. I mean, you can get really imaginative about this, but we've been doing the tabletop exercises for the last 3 years, so that's how long it has taken to us to go into a functional exercise. This year, we are planning a functional exercise, which means we are like really nervous about it, that we are going to actually run scripts. We're actually going to disable things. We're going to go log into our firewalls. But again, it's going to be very planned, right? We're going to manage it in such a way that there is no disruption. When we send out alerts, I'm sure most companies have like a send now alert system to their text messages. We're actually going to use that as well. We're going to make sure we say it's a test, in the beginning and in the end, so that people don't panic. So we're going to do all of that. But doing that takes some time, takes some familiarity with people that you need to work with, and the tabletop exercise definitely gives you that. I'm sure you all experienced that when you have done those. All right, so these are some of the benefits of the tabletop exercises. I'm going to go to the next. I think we have a couple more minutes before Q&A. Okay, so this is a very hot topic, so I wanted to put this slide in there. I'm sure somebody's talking about it today. I forget who. But being able to put your OT in a visibility zone, right? So where you can actually see what's going on in your OT environment. There's going to be a talk somewhere. I think one of the gentlemen here that is a friend of mine, he's arranging a talk on this because it's a very hot topic. It's about OT sensors and its placements. A lot of people are wanting to do this. 5 years ago, nobody wanted to do this. But today, people are interested in doing it, but we're not able to get that information. So either you can rely on people who have already done it, learned the hard way. That's one way, and I think it's the really good way to do that. The other way is to, you try it yourself and see if you can get it to working. And so there's multiple ways to do that, but the reason why I have this is you need to be able to get those alerts, very important, and these OT sensors that are passively sitting and sniffing traffic, which are sniffing traffic at a level 2, which is most of your DCS, PLC traffic. They are mirrored traffic. They're not actually talking to these devices. They're just looking at the mirrored traffic and are able to say if there is a new device that just started talking or there is some kind of configuration change that is going on. Again, depending on the vendors that you choose will have different capabilities, but do a POC. Make sure you test it before you implement it. And that was, I think, one of the theme of this morning's talk is don't just do it and leave it. Test it, make sure you have a plan, what you're going to get out of it. So I'm going to skip that. So some of the alerts that are really important for OT side is unauthorized access. We want to know if somebody that is not authorized is accessing your systems. This can be in the form of multiple failed logins. Typically, 3 logins, most people are going to get that, right? So, I mean, I sometimes forget my password. I'm going to log in once, fail, twice, fail, thrice, fail, okay. But now it goes to 4. We all know most systems lock you up, right, after 3. So if there are more, sorry, I'm seeing the time. So 5 minutes left, or? Okay, so anyway, so these are the different alerts that I would recommend. There are 12 more, but these are the first 6 that I would say focus on. Try to get those in if you're going to implement those sensors in your environment. Communication loss, something stopped talking, device communication alerts, historian stops receiving logs from a control device. Physical security alerts can also be tied into it. Access badge, somebody opened the DCS room door, you could get an alert. So anyway, so these are some of the things that you would need to be able to help you decide, make a decision during incidents. So with that, I'm going to, I think that was very popular last week. Everybody was using ChatGPT to create their own image, and I think it matches really closely. I don't have the hat, but anyways. All right, so yeah, question and answers.